Brownsville. The Brownsville section of Brooklyn, USA, has been a tough neighborhood for as long as most New Yorkers can remember. Out here, 20 subway stops and billions of dollars away from Park and Fifth Avenues, the families of Brownsville will tell you that life can't be much tougher anywhere else. This was true in 1943, when New York City Housing Authority photographers got off the A train at Rockaway Avenue and started taking pictures. They captured Sutter and Stone, Rockaway and Dumont, the gritty arteries of Brownsville. And it was still hard in the 1980s, when the Authority, architects of the nation's largest and most successful public housing program, sent a different crew with a different camera along some of the very same streets. The wonder is that so many families, then and now the great majority, were able to put decent lives together for themselves and their children in Brownsville. That they did it so well has a great deal to do with what these early photographs inspired. Starting in 1934, the Housing Authority here and in dozens of other neighborhoods in New York began to replace rotting housing with good, sturdy housing, replace hopeless slums with hope. It was a place called Brownsville Houses. For more than 30 years now, Brownsville Houses has been proving that good public housing is a lot more than bricks and boilers. It's people, families of public housing, and the Authority staff who serve those families. They have made the New York program a success. And people, more than anything else, is what this story is concerned with. In 1977, the decision to convert this housing development and 41 others from state to federal sponsorship. Before the planners went ahead with the transfer, they wanted to know just what this place called Brownsville Houses was. Longtime housing manager at the project, Ted Gilliam, was the logical person to ask.
If you think of Brownsville, you have to think in terms of small towns. Our population here is about 5,900 people. Many times when you're driving through the country, you'll see a sign, "Welcome to Timbuktu," population 3,500. And you'll see that Timbuktu has a post office, a fire department, the mayor, and everything else. We only have 19.2 acres of land here, where 5,900 people live with the hopes that perhaps they will make a house a home.
By the 1970s, the small town of Brownsville was a town in trouble. Built under the New York State Public Housing Program in the 1940s, the cost of running it was now more than the state and city of New York could afford. All over New York City and at other housing developments built under similar programs, the story was the same. Basically sound, low-income housing was starting to deteriorate. One of the most stable housing resources in New York City was suddenly on the critical list. When the Housing Authority people took the facts and figures to Washington, officials didn't greet them with an open checkbook. HUD did agree, however, that converting these projects to the federal program made economic sense. Through what came to be called the Authority Transfer Program, ATP, a new partnership began. At Housing Authority headquarters, Chairman Joseph J. Christian described one of the major partners.
In terms of major statistics of the agency, both as to people and the physical plant that serves those people, I think they're quite impressive. We presently have in operation in the New York City Housing Authority 254 housing developments, or projects as they're sometimes alluded to. They contain approximately 168,000 apartments housing 550,000 people. Statistics always sound very uninteresting, I guess, but if you stop to think that 550,000 people is larger than the population of the entire city of Pittsburgh, I think a bit of perspective begins to appear.
A few doors away, Authority General Manager John Simon started to focus on ATP progress and problems at Brownsville houses.
Good afternoon. Glad you could come here today. We like to review the authority transfer program as we do from time to time. But I'd like to take this occasion to talk to each of you about modernization, the business modernization part also, and particularly the so-called software items, tenant training, tenant leadership, and staff training.
The meetings brought together all of the disciplines of housing: construction experts, architects, management specialists, social workers, people who've made public housing their life's work. And work was going on at every ATP development. No frills, nuts and bolts work, addressing every problem from creaking 30-year-old elevators to inefficient heating plants, from energy conservation projects to making lobbies safer and the buildings more secure, and everything in between.
Right now, I think that we are pretty much on target within these new schedules. The most important part of the work has been the work that we expect the tenants will see at the project level. Now, actual work is beginning at the project level. This will give us the impetus we need for the tenant participation component, which we believe will be the one area that will sustain the work that we're going to do in the various developments.
At the project level, women like Christine McFadden, Mary Starr, and Ruby Franklin, and other tenant leaders were keeping a critical eye on the program. You don't live in Brownsville with your eyes closed, and people like Mrs. McFadden have also developed pretty good ears for bureaucratic promises. Whether the subject was kitchens or community politics, these tenants, and hundreds of others, kept the program on the right track. In Ruby Franklin's case, she helped to do so as leader of a tenant education team.
A day at Brownsville is quite hectic. Most of our work is field work. I have 4 ladies, excellent ladies, who go out to visit each tenant individually. Sometimes I have to stay over later because we actually need 12 hours to complete a day.
Mrs. Franklin and her teams met with a lot of skepticism at the beginning. But ringing doorbells started to pay off in a growing belief that the ATP program could make Brownsville a better place. Did they want to help? More than a few families said yes. The same kind of critical step-by-step approach was a fact of life at ATP planning sessions.
Do they know, however, and do they understand that this program may turn out to be different 42 months from now than it was 18 months or today because of the cost problem? I want to ask you once more, Mr. Dyers and all the other people here, Mr. Teitelbaum, can't you speed up some visible things in those projects, something the tenants can see now that we are doing? Virginia, you have the MBO on your desk. We are not up to date completely. What can we do now to at least get some tenant satisfaction credibility out there, or improved credibility?